analyzing music could be like going on a treasure hunt, reading a mystery story, and meeting the characters in a new book or movie. Have you heard that you should analyze your music, but you're just not sure how to do that effectively? Do you wish it could be fun instead of tedious or intimidating? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you step by step my current method for analyzing a new piece. Make sure to stay until the end of this video if you would like to find out about one of my all-time favorite free resources for transforming your understanding of classical sonata form without trudging through a dry textbook. This video is part 2 in a series designed to help you optimize your strategy for learning a new piece in a way that's effective and enjoyable. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, check out the link in the description and click subscribe if you'd like to be notified when part 3 comes out. Before you begin, there are 3 materials that I recommend that you gather together. So to be a successful detective, you want to gather all of the evidence available for your case. Musically, this means using the full score. Unless you're a pianist or a guitarist, most of your pieces will have a piano or an orchestral score in addition to your individual part. These scores are full of informational clues that will give you an invaluable perspective as you analyze your new piece. Take a look at this next clip and you'll see what I mean. If reading full scores seems daunting, like it was to me at first, I'm going to be making another video that shows you how you can improve your skill in reading a full orchestral or piano score, so stay tuned for that. I've learned the hard way that I don't always remember every single piece of information that I discover, even if it's really exciting in the moment. To make your work more time effective, as well as to help you connect the various musical clues into a solved story, you'll want to write down your analysis in your score or a separate notebook. How much should you write down in your score? Ideally, you could have a separate score that you put all of the analysis in, and then you transfer the most important points to your practice copy. In your practice copy, it's best not to overmark, so that you can still put in indications from your practice sessions and your lessons and still see what's written in the score in the first place. I personally like to mark the main structural points and any special details, but I used to mark more. Experiment to find out what works best for you. Should you use pencil or colors or pen to mark down your analysis? I personally like to use pencil because it's erasable and it looks different from the printed ink in the score. I've also heard of colored highlighters that you can erase. They sound really neat, but I haven't actually used them. Ultimately, the music you are playing is experienced through sound. By listening to a recording, you can quickly gain an aural model of the structure and details you are analyzing. I recommend listening at least one time through with the score in hand and mark down anything that stands out to you. Throughout the rest of the analysis process, as you work through each section, you can reference the recording as needed. First, you'll want to identify the form of the piece. See if there's any immediate clues. Start with the name and consider the historical context. For example, a piece called Sonata in a classical time period has a pretty good chance of having at least one movement in sonata form, usually the first. Likewise, Baroque dance suites often have many movements in binary form. Other commonly labeled pieces include the theme and variation, fugue, and rondeau. However, the piece is not always labeled clearly, and with a form like sonata form, it can vary widely from piece to piece. So check for the musical evidence in the score that will back up the clues that you've already found. Compare what you're expecting with what actually happens. If it's different, what does happen? To confirm the form, we'll look for the large structural sections of the piece. Many forms, such as sonata form, ternary ABA form, and the rondeau, involve a repeat of the initial musical material. So to start, I like to scan the score for any repeating material that can help me pinpoint these sections more quickly. Changes of tempo or written key can also help delineate sections. Also note any repeat signs, unless they're just around 2 phrases or so. In a classical sonata, there's often a repeat around the exposition, and then a repeat that encompasses 2 sections, the development and the recapitulation. Although these tips will often help you find the structure much faster, appearances can be deceiving, so make sure you double-check your initial analysis. A strategy I like to use is to figure out how I would justify my position to a teacher or a chamber music colleague. Try to find 3 to 5 musical elements that support your position. If you choose to just Google the piece in hopes that somebody else has already done all of this analysis work for you, don't skip the step of double-checking and finding the evidence in the score yourself. Information on the internet is unfortunately not always correct, and it's just so much more convincing for yourself and others to have musical reasons for what you believe instead of merely relying on someone else's opinion. Personally, I've found that analyzing the piece first myself leads me to a much deeper connection with the music. And I think it's just more fun. You get to discover this piece as if nobody has ever seen it before. And you can always look at other people's analyses after you complete your own. After you've confirmed the form and found the basic sections of the piece, you can begin to delve into the dramatic arc of each section. Select one of the sections of your piece and look for the main themes, phrase areas, and tonal areas, including the main modulations. Try to get a sense for the emotional narrative of this section and how it fits into the piece as a whole. Does it start peacefully and then become more agitated, or vice versa? Perhaps it builds up to a climax, or surrounds a beautiful moment where time seems to stand still. Your understanding of this will develop as you spend more time with the piece, so don't be concerned if you don't understand every single part at this point. A basic grasp of this narrative, however, will help you be more effective in your practicing and ultimately help you get performance ready with this piece faster. As you gain a sense of the trajectory of each section, are there any particularly special or unexpected musical moments that stand out to you? This could be a fermata, a short temporary tempo change, or a striking chord or modulation. How do these musical moments either affirm or contradict the emotional narrative of this section? You can also briefly note any special or extended techniques and pinpoint any passages that you think will be tricky for you personally or as an ensemble. Continuing to zoom in on our analysis, next we'll look at the details of the individual phrases. In this stage, you get to meet the cast of characters in your story. I like to imagine how I would act out this phrase, what tone of voice I would use, and so on. Engaging your imagination in this way not only makes the analysis process way more fun, but it will also help you when you start to perform your piece. As you look more closely at each phrase, some musical details to consider include the type of intervals, whether they're leaping or gliding by step, the types of articulations, whether they're short, punchy, or legato. Also consider the dynamics, type and range, and how it affects the contrast and contour within the whole phrase. Consider the register of the instrument, whether it's low, medium, or high, and how this affects the timbre, along with any special or extended techniques. Along with the main voice or melody, what does the accompaniment or scoring tell you about the character of this phrase? As we saw earlier when discussing using a full score for your analysis, this can make a huge difference in the musical effect. Remember to zoom back out from looking at the small details to see how they fit in the big picture. I like to zoom back and forth from looking at the trajectory of each section and the small details within each phrase. You can experiment to see what works best for you. I want to take a moment to address a question that I've grappled with throughout my musical studies. Here it is. Should you analyze every single chord's harmony? Well, the main goal behind this process is to illuminate the relationships between each chord, how they function leading one to another, whether they're in a modulation or not. So what's the best way to achieve this goal? Analyzing every single chord can be really helpful. I used to do it for almost every single piece that I played. I think it gives an invaluable insight into the trajectory of the piece. So you may have noticed that I said I used to do this. Well, there's a couple of reasons why I don't do this on every single piece now. The first is that I've built up a foundation of years of doing meticulous analyses like this, so that now I can often absorb this information orally or at a quick glance at the score. The second reason is that it takes a lot of time to do this type of analysis, especially in a chamber piece where you might be dealing with unfamiliar clefs, or simply if you just don't have a lot of experience doing harmonic analysis. Rather than just becoming overwhelmed and skipping this analysis process entirely, I recommend that you pinpoint special chords and important modulations using a recording, and then focus your attention on these areas first. Sonata form can be one of the most varied and tricky forms to get really comfortable with. So today I'm going to share one of my favorite free resources that revolutionized the way I understood sonata form. World-renowned pianist Andras Schiff performed the entire cycle of Beethoven piano sonatas at Wigmore Hall in London in the early 2000s. Before each concert, he presented a lecture recital on each one of the sonatas. These are amazing, and you can watch them for free. I'll link the website down below, and also a website where you can get free scores to follow along. Just to be upfront with you, listening to these lecture recitals will take time, but it's so worth it in what you will learn about sonata form, Beethoven, and great piano playing. Not to mention the time and frustration you'll save whenever you encounter sonata form in the future. To get the most out of your experience, I recommend following along with the score during the lecture, and then listening to a complete recording of the sonata, again following along with the score. If you found this video helpful, consider sharing it with a friend, and remember to stay tuned for part 3 coming up this next week. Thanks for watching, love you all, and I'll see you soon.